Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a rifle cartridge review on the 7x57 or the 7mm Mauser. Stay tuned. The 7mm Mauser is one of the OG cartridges. Its development was in the early 1890s. And it was hot off the heels of two important cartridges, the 8mm Lebel from France that had smokeless powder and Spitzer bullets, which came a little bit later, and then the 8mm by 57 German round that had a rimless head and really was ahead of its time. So in the early 1890s, several countries around the world took those innovations from those cartridges from the late 1880s and began to incorporate them into their infantry rifles and cartridges. We got a lot of new updates and new designs across the world. It's a little different though with Paul Mauser, who was in Germany and did a lot of work with their government, because they had just created their 8x57 round, the government did. Yet Paul Mauser decided to create his own and called it the 7mm Mauser. Now he basically took that 8x57 with the smokeless powder and with the .473 head diameter and the fact that the head was rimless. He took that design and he just tinkered with a few little things. It's got a little bit longer length overall, and it definitely is obviously neck down to 7mm. The 7mm is a little bit shorter, but yet has a little bit longer neck. So just some improvements that Mauser thought he would do, but in all honesty, very similar. So, he'd been creating infantry service rifles since the 1870s, and he took this 7mm Mauser and put it in his new 1893 Mauser rifle, and it became a big success. So this is one instance where within Germany you had two, modern cutting-edge rifle cartridges kind of at the same time. One developed by the German government, one developed by Mauser. Now both the 8x57 German round and the 7mm Mauser, their overall length was a little bit longer than 3 inches and fit perfectly into those Mauser actions. And even today, if you have a Mauser, say 98 action, it's kind of an intermediate length action. It's longer than a short, shorter than a long, and it fits something like a 7x57 Mauser rifle cartridge just about perfect. So Mauser began working on this, around 1891, 1892, came out with it in 1894 officially, around that time. And that's been 129 years ago. So this 7x57 Mauser has been in existence for 129 years, almost 130 years. And yet it's still viable today. Now, it's not extremely popular here in America, and I'd say it's not extremely popular anymore throughout the world, but it's still viable. You can still go online right now and buy ammunition for it. You can still find brass for it. It's still popular enough that you can find the components. You can find dies for it, whatever you need. So it's still viable in the year 2023, but yet it's been around nearly 130 years. Now, like I said, Mauser was putting in these chamberings into service rifles, and he was selling them to many countries around the world. And I've just got this pulled up here on my phone. I want to read a few to you. Austria, Hungary, Spain, Dominican Republic, Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, Chile, Cuba, Kingdom of Serbia, Venezuela, First Philippine Republic. These were all Mauser rifles chambered in 7x57 Mauser. So you might wonder, were these rifles used in conflicts and wars? Well, here's some of them that they were used in. The First Rif War, the Spanish-American War, the Philippine-American War, the Mexican Revolution, Second Boer War, Macedonian Struggle, Balkan Wars, the First World War, Spanish Civil War, and other more minor conflicts. So this had a tremendous, spread of usage throughout the world. Now, it also saw tremendous usage as a hunting cartridge as well. Now, a lot of people were going over to Africa and hunting with big cartridges. They'd been hunting with like the 500 Nitro Express black powder cartridge for a long time, things like that. But in the early 1900s and 1910s, several British firms like Holland and Holland, Wesley Richards, Jeffrey, and Rigby were making what became famous cartridges for the African continent, and they were all big magnums. However, they were also taking a little bit smaller cartridges and using them in Africa too for, say, plains game. And one of these from Rigby was the 275 Rigby. And the 275 Rigby is a 7x57 Mauser. It's the same thing. But it was chambered and manufactured by Rigby. And of course, it found its way over to the Dark Continent. Of course, we know that Karamojo, Bell, and Ivory Hunter shot well over 800 elephants with the cartridge using full metal jackets and hitting it in the brain, which, you know, it is what it is. It definitely made the cartridge famous and made him famous or infamous, however you want to look at it. Famous gun writer Jack O'Connor, his wife, loved the 7x57, used it quite a bit. And over in India, the hunter Jim Corbett used it quite a bit to hunt, you know, man-eating lions and man-eating leopards and things like that. Actually went in and killed an animal that had been eating people from local villages. And he used the 275 Rigby. So if you like to talk about the history of rifle cartridges, prepare yourself for shock and awe when it comes to the 7x57 Mauser. Now, we have brand new cartridges today like the 7mm PRC, and we have really classic cartridges like the 7mm Rim Mag and the 7mm 08. And we can just keep going back. There's a lot of fantastic 7mm cartridges. Is the 7x57 Mauser, is it still viable today? And how does it compare to these cartridges? So let's take a look at that now. All right, so here's the 7mm Mauser. See, it's got a 20-degree shoulder angle, .473 head diameter. That came from the 8x57. It has a little bit longer neck than the 8x57 and a shorter overall length of 3.065. Holds about the same amount of case capacity. Let's see how it compares to the 7mm 08. So first of all, let's look at 150 grain bullets. So this is in a 22-inch barrel. That's important. It's topping out around 2831. So let's just say 2800 is about the max that you're going to get according to this reloading manual with a 22-inch barrel. All right, bam, 26-inch on the 7mm 08. You have to watch these manuals. They don't do apples to apples. Okay, it's showing about 2867. That's probably about right. But take off 25 feet per second per inch, and you actually get down to pretty much the same velocity. So velocity is about the same. One difference in the 7 Mauser and the 7mm 08s, the 08 will fit comfortably in a short action. The Mauser may or may not. It's really more of an intermediate length cartridge, and so it might have trouble. You might have to push the bullet in quite a ways to get it to fit in your magazine, but it would just depend on the different rifles that you're using. What about the 280 Remington? Much bigger case, probably holding in about 10 grains more powder. Same bullet, it's going about 3,000. So 200 feet per second faster out of the 280 with 10 more grains of powder versus the 7x57. Oh, what do you know? 26-inch barrel, so let's cut that down by 50. So more like 150 feet per second advantage. Not that much. All right, what about the old 7 Rim Mag? 150 grain bullet, 24-inch barrel, going around 32. So take 25 off of that, you're talking like 32, 25. So 7 mag over the 7 Mauser, you're talking probably 225 feet per second advantage with a lot more case capacity, like 35 grains more case capacity. So not really a very efficient cartridge, but it definitely has the case capacity to definitely go 200 and 250 feet per second faster. One last thing to note is that because this cartridge is so old and it could potentially be shot out of a rifle that's 130 years old almost, its pressure is going to be pretty low. And factory ammo is going to be anemic. It's not going to be fast at all. So if you compare factory ammo to basically any other ammo or any other cartridge I just compared it with, you're going to see a big, you're going to be disappointed. However, if you have a custom rifle and or you hand load, you can see tremendous benefits to that process, and you can get a lot more out of this old cartridge than what the factory can, because the factory has to play it safe. They got to lawyer proof all their rounds because they don't know if you're shooting it in an 1893 Mauser or if you're shooting it in a brand new rifle. They have no idea. But just based on what this book has said, I want you to think about that. 35 grains more powder in a 7 mag, and it's going, let's say, 225, 250 feet per second faster with 35 grains more powder. And the 7 mag came out in the 1960s, and this one came out in the 1890s. So that's 70 years prior to the 7 mag. So even in 2023, guys, it's still viable and it's still a good option. Now, I have to add in here, if you want a more available option that you're going to duplicate the performance, you're probably better off to go with the 7mm 08. You're going to get basically the same thing, but you're actually going to be able to find rifles and ammunition for it much easier.
All right, let's look at some size comparisons with the 7mm Mauser. Oh, this is a 30-06 and a 7mm Mauser. Which one is which? Yeah, they're the same down below. 30-06 comes from the 7mm Mauser. Here's the 7 Mauser compared to the old 30-30. Came out around the same time, just in 2 different continents. Here's the 7 Mauser compared to the 270 short mag. 7 Mauser compared to the 308. 7 Mauser compared to the 6.5 Swede. Very similar, just a few little differences. Came out at the same time. And here's the 7 Mauser compared to the 50 BMG.
So you can see it holds its own. It's still viable today. And when I think of a 7x57 Mauser, I just think of refinement, of just a classic cartridge. It just really is a cool historical cartridge that can still be used today, nearly 130 years after it originally came out. You guys have any experience with the 7 Mauser? Any hunting stories you want to share? Any reloading that you'd like to talk about? If so, please leave that in the comments and like this video if you liked it. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. More rifle cartridge reviews coming and more content like this. And we'll leave it there, but hopefully you've had a great day. And until next time, take care.